The New York Yankees have sent Giancarlo Stanton on a rehab assignment with the Double-A affiliate Somerset Patriots, and now the question remains, when will Giancarlo Stanton be back? And now, who's going to sit when Giancarlo Stanton comes back? How will the Yankees handle a playing time situation that is going to prove to be very difficult for them to manage throughout the 2025 season? But you also have to acknowledge it's a pretty good problem to have, and it's not one the Yankees are used to having. I'm not sure how many times throughout the last few years I've talked about the Yankees having a lot of depth or so many mouths to feed and only so many roster spots in the lineup. I oftentimes have to sit here and tell you guys that they don't have enough bats to fill out a 9-man lineup and do so in a way that would reflect on a very high payroll or would reflect well on a World Series contender. Now the Yankees have their deepest lineup in years, and Giancarlo Stanton hopes to add to that, but again, it does present a playing time question, and again, we still don't really know when Stanton will be back. Will it be in a week? Will it be in a few days? We'll talk about kind of recent trends with Giancarlo Stanton rehab assignments. We'll talk about the playing time situation. All of that and more right here on Fireside Yankees. I'm your host, Ryan Garcia. This is Fireside Yankees. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, this YouTube page. EmpireSportsMedia.com is our website. It's the home to all of our written content. I just recently released our top 30 prospects, our updated lists going into June, and that's available on the website. I know I did a video yesterday where I went over that list a little bit, but if you want a full 30-player write-up, it's on there. And without further ado, let's get into Giancarlo Stanton and this rehab assignment. Now, Giancarlo Stanton is coming back from a double elbow injury. It was kind of a tennis elbow thing, but it seemed to be more severe than just soreness or pain. It seemed to be something that he had to take quite a bit of time to rest because he's been on the IL for almost 2 months now. And if you look at his track record with rehab assignments, while this injury seemed to have been something that knocked him on his back for a few months, he doesn't really need a lot of time to come back. And traditionally speaking, Giancarlo Stanton has been someone who does not go on lengthy rehab assignments. If you look at his Yankee career, in his Yankee career, he has gone on multiple rehab assignments due to having multiple injuries. In 2019, he was on the IL and had to return 2 separate times. He returned to the Yankees and then almost immediately got hurt, then had to build himself back up and return to the Yankees later in the year. In 2019, though, he only played 6 rehab games despite only playing 18 major league games that year. He had so much recovery he had to do. He had so much time he had off the field, and yet he only played in 6 total rehab games in 2022. He only played in 2 rehab games, and in 2023, he only played in 1 rehab game. And last year, he did hit the IL, but he did not play a single rehab game. So Giancarlo Stanton is not the guy who's going to go out there and spend a week in Somerset or spend a week in Scranton or spend a week in Hudson Valley. He is going to play like 1 or 2 games, maybe 3, maybe. But even back then, you look at the years we played 3 in a rehab assignment, that was 2019. Giancarlo Stanton was still someone who was expected to play some outfield throughout the season. Now, Giancarlo Stanton is strictly a DH, and Aaron Boone is all but confirmed that Giancarlo Stanton will not play the field this year, so I imagine he's not going to play the field in this rehab assignment, so you can maybe expect Stanton before the Boston series or during that Boston series. I think that Stanton is someone who is going to come back for that series. I think he really wants to participate in that series, and looking at how the Yankees traditionally play in Fenway, having Giancarlo Stanton back for that kind of series might be pretty huge. You're going to be facing Garrett Crochet on Friday. He is someone who has, really, really good numbers against left-handed hitters, and while the Yankees did tag him their last time out, the Yankees also gave up a bunch of runs and lost that game. So you want to have Giancarlo Stanton in the mix, but looking at what he did last year, I'm going to look at his regular and playoff games because the playoffs for him were amazing, and it should not be mentioned without talking about that postseason. And in 114 games in the regular season, he hit 27 home runs. In 14 games in the postseason, he hit 7 home runs. So that was 34 home runs in 128 games played. If you combine his regular and postseason, Stanton slashed 237, 299, and 502 for a 351 41 weighted on base average, a 94.8 average exit velocity, a 56.4 hard hit rate, and a 21.2% barrel rate. Giancarlo Stanton was ridiculous. If you look at the entirety of his season, 34 home runs in 128 games is unreal. That is a 40 to 50 home run pace if he plays a full 150 games. And while you know you're not going to get 150 games out of Giancarlo Stanton, that kind of raw power is remarkable. And I know that people are going to think, well, he just bounced back because he was thinner and et cetera, et cetera. Well, there was actually a material change that I think a lot of us overlooked because we didn't really know what these things were back then, but now obviously the term has been popularized. The torpedo bat. Giancarlo Stanton was using a torpedo bat in the 2024 season, and he had, I would say, his best offensive season since 2021. I know his 2022 season, he made the All-Star team, but he finished with a 113 WRC plus and a 327 weighted on base average. He struggled in that postseason. If you look at this past year, though, 341 weighted on base average, much better. And the underlying data was really good. He had a 365 expected weighted on base average in the regular and postseason. That would match his 2021 season, where he had roughly the same expected weighted on base average. So, Giancarlo Stanton last year was unbelievable. He was remarkable. He was every bit as good as you could possibly imagine, and he was every bit as good as you needed him to be in the power department. And that's something the Yankees are going to heavily value because they need some more power. Not that they are a team that doesn't hit for power, but why not have even more, right? It's kind of like the idea of you can never have too much pitching. You can never have too much pop in your lineup as long as those power hitters aren't, overly flawed. Stan is probably the only all-or-nothing hitter on this team that I can think of. I know that they do have some guys with some decently high strikeout rates. I guess Jazz should also be thrown in that conversation of high strikeout rates, tons of power. But that's two guys, and one of them has a bunch of speed and defense, so you could argue that his offense isn't the only important thing he provides. There are just not a lot of big hulking sluggers on the Yankees. There are a lot of guys who hit home runs but do other things as well. Anthony Volpe is slugging a good bit, and he has a really good defensive profile and runs the bases decently well. Jason Dominguez, good power, but also runs the bases well. Cody Bellinger, good defense, good base running, and some power. Jazz Chisholm, good defense, good base running, good power. Stanton is kind of the only, all he's going to do is just try and hit bombs. And that is a player you do want to have on your offense because there are going to be games where you need the home run ball to win, and you need a bunch of power depth to match a power pitcher or to match someone who's just traditionally been really, really good. If you look at how you're going to try and beat really good pitching, it's by, if you get two guys on, you hit a home run. You get all three of those runners in. You're not going to be able to dink and dunk against very, very good pitchers. Sometimes it works in your favor, but you don't want that to be your strategy or the way that you plan on winning baseball games. You want to capitalize on situations where you have runners on base, and Stanton helps further with your ability to do that. I also want to acknowledge that Giancarlo Stanton's game power is something that's only surpassed by Aaron Judge on this roster. So you're adding your second best home run hitter. You're adding someone who's going to hit really well from the right-handed side. You're adding someone who has a proven playoff pedigree. And look, as a data guy, as someone who, is really into, hey, what projects well, what's predictable or what's predictive, what matters when we're talking about future production, I think these things still matter, though. I think being a good playoff hitter, being someone who has been there a bunch of times and has succeeded in those environments, there is a trust that I think both old school and new school baseball fans have in Giancarlo Stanton and his ability to hit in the playoffs. I know his numbers against left-handed pitching weren't pretty last year. He actually had, I believe, a below average weighted runs created plus against left-handed pitchers last year in the regular season. But if you combine his regular and postseason numbers, he had a 756 OPS, which isn't great, but is above average. And the underlying data was pretty good. 17.5% barrel rate, 358 expected weighted on base average with a 324 expected weighted on base average. If you guys don't know what weighted on base average is, it's kind of a more encompassing version of OPS. I guess that's the best way to put it. If you just prefer expected OPS, I can also provide that as well. You just combine expected on base percentage with expected slugging percentage. His expected OPS was 774, so he underperformed that mark as well. But he still hits the ball hard against lefties, and I still trust him against lefties a little bit more than I do some other hitters. Ben Rice has decent numbers against lefties this year. They're not bad, but I do trust him more in those at-bats, him being Stanton. I trust Stanton more in left-handed situations against left-handed pitchers than I do Jason Dominguez. And I would argue that Trent Grisham is someone who can hit lefties and righties, just kind of traditionally through his career. He has hit lefties decently well. But this season, when you look at his numbers against left-handed pitching, they're not as good as they've been in years past. He has an 83 WRC plus and a 29.3% strikeout rate. So perhaps Grisham is someone you just kind of exclusively use against righties moving forward. Looking a little bit at, now that we're looking at this conversation with the playing time, let's get into it. Let's talk about the playing time situation because there is not an easy answer. There just isn't. And if we're going to sit here and pretend there is, we're doing a disservice to this conversation. I know that it's not going to be easy for them to find a perfect solution, and they're going to have to increase and decrease the playing time of different guys as the season goes on, as some guys get hot, as some guys get cold. Some guys are bound to get hurt, and that's going to change up your playing time as well. You don't want guys to get hurt, of course, but, it's part of the game. Guys just don't stay perfectly healthy, unfortunately. So the first thing I would suggest for the Yankees is to kind of aggressively platoon. You look at the Boston Red Sox, they do that really well. I'm not really a big Alex Cora guy, but I will commend him on how well he platoons. He does it a little bit too aggressively, like he sits some rookies against lefties, and that doesn't really make sense. Look at AJ Hinch for the Detroit Tigers, the AL leading Detroit Tigers. They do such a good job of platooning as well. I think the Yankees can do the same thing here. Paul Goldschmidt is not very good against right-handed pitching, but he's very good against left-handed pitching. He should be in the lineup every single time the Yankees face a lefty. Ben Rice is pretty good against righties and pretty average against lefties. Grisham and Dominguez are below average against lefties. So you want to sit Grisham, Dominguez against lefties. You can consider sitting Ben Rice based on the situation as well, but you should start against lefties Paul Goldschmidt and Giancarlo Stanton. The benefit of Cody Bellinger here is that he actually hits lefties and righties well, so you don't really have to worry about when he has to play. He can kind of just play and not play whenever it kind of fits the offense. And what the Yankees are trying to do, are trying to get him on off day and get him off his legs. So at first base against lefties, I want Goldschmidt there, and at DH, I want Giancarlo Stanton. This opens your outfield where now you have Aaron Judge in right field, you would have Cody Bellinger playing, and then you can rotate between Trent Grisham and Jason Dominguez against the lefty, so it gets them in the lineup. Now against righties, you want to have Cody Bellinger, Aaron Judge, Jason Dominguez, and Trent Grisham kind of all in the mix. You could either do as you rotate between Grisham, Dominguez, and Bellinger against lefties and righties, you can just kind of have that continue to be the thing. But against righties, I need Ben Rice I need Ben Rice at first base, and then you can kind of alternate between Stanton, Goldschmidt, DH, or Stanton. If Goldschmidt's DH, you can hit Ben Rice at first. If Goldschmidt's playing first, you can DH Rice. If Rice is playing first, you can also put in one of your outfielders that are not in the mix in the outfield. You can have, maybe Dominguez DH, or on days where Judge is going to DH, it allows you to throw out your full outfield. That's the other thing. Aaron Judge still DHs, and that's a really important part of this conversation as well. That is going to push Giancarlo Stanton out of the lineup for those days as well. Aaron Judge DH'd 15 times, and he's played right field 49 times. I don't expect that ratio to hold up as they get Stanton back. I expect him to play the field a little bit more frequently when he's in the lineup. But again, the Yankees do like DH and Judge. They like getting him off his feet. They like getting him out of right field on occasion. So on those days, you can, again, throw out your three outfielders in Bellinger, Dominguez, and Grisham, and then you either have Rice at first or Goldschmidt at first, depending on whether it's a righty or a lefty. So it's not a perfect solution. It doesn't guarantee everyone consistent playing time. They shouldn't be formulaic with it. They should, kind of rotate kind of aggressively, or not aggressively. They should rotate weekly. They should try to figure out ways to just keep guys in the mix and not ice anyone out. But there are ways to do it because there are guys who just naturally perform better against one-handedness than they do against the other-handedness. So, again, you have your guys. You have to identify who your good against lefties guys are and your good against righties guys are. Stanton also has the benefit of being good against righties and lefties, so you also do not have to just aggressively sit him against righties. You can use certain right-handed matchups as off days. I would prefer if they don't use left-handed matchups as off days. They should try and do everything they can to make sure that those line up with games against right-handed pitching. Because again, I want Stanton in there against the lefty. And when you start looking at how teams are going to have to pitch to the Yankees with Stanton in there, now you look at your right-handed bats. You have Judge, you have Goldschmidt, you have Stanton, to a lesser extent Volpe. I know Volpe isn't as good of a hitter as those three guys, but Volpe against lefties this season has actually been very effective, and he is an important cog to this machine when we talk about how you're going to perform against lefties this season. Anthony Volpe has not been great against righties this year, and, that is something that, it's fine. Like, traditionally, he doesn't hit well against righties, but this year he's a 101 WRC plus hitter against righties. It's not great. It's not perfect. It's not elite, but it's better than where he's been at before, and he's roughly average in those matchups. But against lefties, this year he has a 150 weighted runs created plus. He has a 890 OPS. He's hitting 318, and in his career, he has a 112 WRC plus and a 422 slugging percentage. So Anthony Volpe is someone who's going to continue to help you against lefties. Now against lefties, you have 4 right-handed hitters who are going to help you in those matchups. Who are going to help you hit for some power, get some power, hit for doubles or home runs. Volpe's more of a doubles guy this year than a home runs guy. I actually like that for Volpe. I think that's just more sustainable for his average as well, because when you get too fly ball heavy, your average comes down, your BABIP comes down. But now you have depth against lefties, and Bellinger hits lefties well for a left-handed hitter. Wells actually hits lefties well for a left-handed hitter. Chisholm hasn't been historically great against left-handed pitching, but with the Yankees, he has been a little bit better than before, and I think that that's important as well. LeMahieu has come around and has been about a league average hitter for you this season. Again, I don't expect DJ LeMahieu to be a superstar for the New York Yankees, but if DJ LeMahieu continues to be a serviceable hitter in those matchups, then, you know, he'll help you. Like, that is a help to have. It's helpful that DJ LeMahieu is roughly as good in terms of results as he is in his expected results this season. And again, I think that it's having as much depth as possible. It's making sure that left-handed pitchers cannot bully the Yankee lineup. It's an important thing that the Yankees haven't really had last year, especially. They had a very poor lineup against left-handed pitching. They had a very flawed lineup against left-handed pitching. Now they have depth. They have power depth. They have on-base depth. They have guys who can handle those situations. And late in games, you can aggressively pinch hit. If you're facing a righty and then a tough lefty comes in, let's say in a Aroldis Chapman, you can bring in Paul Goldschmidt off the bench. You can have Giancarlo Stanton come off the bench and hit. I know traditionally speaking, not a great pinch hitter, but he's going to have to kind of get good at that so he can be really valuable. You also have Volpe. You know, I know he's not going to come off the bench and do that, but if you have a situation where Volpe's up against a tough righty and you have Peraza on the bench, if you absolutely need to, game on the line, you absolutely need to, ninth inning, like, you will not play the bottom half of the ninth or the top half of the 10th if you do not get a hit here. You can have Ben Rice come in. You can have Trent Grisham come in. You can have, someone like Jason Dominguez come in. That also works for DJ LeMahieu. So it's a really good thing to have these guys available, because late in games, you're going to have better at-bats because your bottom of the lineup or your not great hitters in certain situations don't have to take those at-bats in critical moments of games. So adding to your bench, that's really important. Your bench hasn't been great for you this year. Adding to your starting lineup's been awesome for you this year, but you want to make sure that you have as many options as possible, and why not just make this group that much better? So the solution isn't, hey, sit this guy and just don't play him very often. It's platoon, aggressively use guys in matchups in which they are favored in, and keep guys fresh. You know you're going to need to keep Stanton fresh. You know you're going to need to keep Judge off the field at times. You know you're going to need to get Rice and Dominguez and Grisham and Bellinger comfortable not playing 5 games straight or 6 games straight. They have to figure out ways to stay hot while not playing every single day. So it's a challenge. It's going to be difficult, but it's a challenge the Yankees need to be able to live up to, and I think they will. I think they'll have enough guys that are going to be hot at enough times that they're going to be able to get through this. And when you get to the postseason, you're going to have kind of an embarrassment of riches, if healthy, to go into the playoffs and know that you can play your hottest guys or your guys that have played the best for you throughout the year. It's healthy competition. It's good competition. All these guys do things outside of Stanton that are not just hitting. Goldschmidt is a solid defensive first baseman. Grisham, I know he hasn't been great in the outfield defensively this year, but he is better than Dominguez out there. Bellinger's a really good defender and a good base runner. Dominguez is a really good base runner. Rice is really, really good offensively and can really help you in pinch hitting situations. Grisham has had some good pinch hitting situations as well. So these are just really good problems to have for the New York Yankees. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. How would you address this situation? How do you feel about Giancarlo Stanton coming back? We'd love to know what you guys think. Again, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to check out Fireside Yankees on all of your favorite social media platforms. I'm Ryan Garcia. You can follow me at Ryan Garcia ESM to continue the conversation there. And finally, make sure to check out EmpireSportsMedia.com for written coverage on all of your favorite New York sports teams. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's go Yankees. Peace out.
Perfect.